Waiting for that minute is a long time, isn't it? I'd like to call the Linn-Mar School Board meeting to order at 5 o'clock here in the Learning Resource Center. Will you please determine a quorum?
Buckles.
Here.
Eisenberg.
Here.
Lawson.
Here.
Maury.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Walt.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Quorum is present at 5 o'clock.
Okay.
Move to adopt the agenda as presented. Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So it carries. Shannon will talk to us about the audience communication.
Yes, we have received 20 letters from individuals that would like to all offer their support for our Iowa Big program. These 20 individuals vary from current students to former students, parents, and community members. Every letter speaks highly of the Iowa Big program. Due to the number of requests and the consistency of the requests, we will not be reading each letter out loud individually tonight. Instead, we have printed copies of each letter and have given those letters to each board member to read on their own. We thank everyone for sharing their experiences and for providing their opinions about the Iowa Big program. I'd also like to add to any of our students that have submitted their letters to the board, I'd be glad to meet with individual students or the current Iowa Big students as a group to hear their thoughts and concerns as well. So I'll be following up with those individuals tomorrow and later on this week for potential conversations there. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's continue. We have a report about community promise from Emily Russ. So Emily, if you'd like to give us information, we'd appreciate it.
Yes, I have just a couple of slides, but thank you for having me this evening. I'm Emily Russ with Marion Economic Development Corporation and Community Promise. And earlier, the start of the school year, we kicked off this Marion Community Build. This is a joint project between both districts and the city of Marion. We purchased this home for students to renovate shortly, actually it was shortly before the derecho. So the first couple weeks of students being on task were really cleaning up the yard, as you can see on the left, and it progressed to the right. But we caught some footage of the kids working, and I just have about a minute-long video to show you. This will just explain it a little bit better than I can.
The city of Marion has become known for putting the unity in community, and this is just one of those examples.
We are going to be creating affordable housing for low to moderate income families and individuals, so we're excited about that process. We hope that we're able to find properties where once we complete this one, we move on to a new neighborhood. And we're able to kind of light a spark, per se, in neighborhoods that are ready for some new reinvestment.
In a community that talks so much about new growth and new development, it's really exciting to see redevelopment conversations started, and with such a great group of partners, with the city working with Linn-Mar and Marion Independent and Medco. It's just a great collaborative effort.
These are students from both Marion and Linn-Mar working together on this program. So that doesn't happen very often, but we're really excited to be able to bring those students together.
The students can learn just as much in a remodel as they can a new house. And it kind of prepares them better for their future when they move out. Because not every single person who moves out is going to be able to buy a brand new house. So why not teach them the skills and abilities to remodel the house that they're probably going to be moving into?
It's an opportunity for the students to also contribute to their community and to be part of the growth and be part of shaping our community.
I really decided to do this class just because hands-on work, get to come out here, and a lot of my buddies were doing it, so I just came out here, we're having fun, just reconstructing. It's something that we all like to do, and we all get along doing it. We all work well with each other, and it's just fun.
We're really proud of our students because this is ownership in their community, it's ownership in their future, and we're really excited to play a part in it, and we're really looking forward to taking these homes and turning them into really livable spaces for families.
So that's just been a really great project between both districts. If you're on 8th Avenue and driving by, the house is right there across the street. I believe it's Wells Fargo. So that it looks different already today if you're driving by. So they're moving inside, working on renovating the kitchen. It's been a really neat project that's been fun to watch. Another opportunity that we have for students between both districts are called Pursuit Grants. And we were able to award our first recipient this past year to a student at Marion graduate. And I have just a brief video about his story as well.
I'm the first recipient of the Community Promise Pursuit Grant. Kirkwood had a class that I could take my junior year for welding, and CNC was also a part of that. So my junior year I went in, I took the welding class and the CNC class, and I ended up actually liking CNC more. I was working just the typical high school jobs, and I was just kind of saying, hey, I want to get in and start my career off, or get kind of a jump. And he's like, well, I work at Crystal Group, and I'm sure if you apply, they'd be happy to hire you as an intern. At the moment, I'm a CNC operator, but I would like to, in the near future, get more into programming. Previously, I was using borrowed tools from either my coworkers, my dad, or even my grandpa. And with this Pursuit Grant, I was able to, return the borrowed tools from the family members and purchase my own tools, which was a great thing to have. The Pursuit Grant gave me a great boost in the right direction for my own career.
So those are available for both students in both districts that have a really great experience at a company in our area, and they may need some additional training, or in Corbin's case, he needed tools in order to continue doing his job well. And so we were happy to partner with him as a Marion graduate. And so this year we hope to continue to expand on that and award more than one. My goal is 4 or 5 this year, and so we'll be continuing to share that information about how students can engage with that opportunity. So just briefly, in the past year, obviously we have all been forced to adapt to change. On an average year, I am visiting students in the classroom weekly, talking to them about career opportunities in our community. Obviously that couldn't happen this year, and so we created our YouTube channel. We were able to take some of our virtual career conversations virtually. So those are available for students, as well as sharing with them in short snippets of how to take the career assessment and how to apply that to here locally in our community. And lastly, originally when we set out, when we created Community Promise, our goal was in line with Future Ready Iowa, and we quickly found out that both districts have exceeded that 70% of students having education, being on a plan of having a pathway beyond high school. And so we really needed to fine-tune those goals a little bit more specifically, sharing more opportunities with students of what they're passionate about and how it's available in our community, simplifying our web content. We went through a big overhaul this last fall of how to better speak with students, how to engage at a level that is more engaging with students in the 8th grade through senior and high school demographic. And along with that, greater social media presence, more videos, more infographics. And so you'll be seeing those things this year on our Community Promise website. But I just wanted to join you this evening to share with you a little bit about what we've done in the past year and how we've really tried to adapt to the changes that have happened in the past year. With that's all I have for this evening, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions, comments? Not seeing any. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I don't have questions. I was just going to commend your work because it's really making a difference in our community and with our students, and I just wanted to say thank you. I have driven by the house. It looks great. I'm excited to see how the inside comes with the students, and so I just wanted to say thank you for all of your efforts.
So thank you. Thank you for
Yeah, going through there and driving by that as many times as I do, I remember what it was like before they got started. and I've seen it. I always pull because you have the sign right out there in front, so it always pulls me to look towards that. And it's amazing how it's improved. And like Britt just said, I would really love to see what it's like on the inside.
Well, and they'll be moving. They've been moving indoors in the last couple of weeks, removing wallpaper, which is probably a really good experience for all high school students, right? And they will be pulling out all of the kitchen cabinets and redoing those this week and next week. So that will really make some big changes.
Anything else? Demolition's always a popular thing, so they'll like that part.
It's the biggest changes, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Emily, for
Yes,
coming
thank
and
you.
sharing with us, and we look forward to hearing from you again in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Emily.
Yeah. So next we have Mark Hutchison here to give us some more information about, in this case, project-based learning.
As Mark's getting set up, I'll just give a quick context for the board members and the audience as well. Tonight's kind of a follow-up conversation from our last board meeting about the future of Linn-Mar High School. In December, you heard kind of a vision of what that would look like as we go forward over the course of the next 10 years, starting next year. And really 4 main course delivery options were shared at that time, from traditional course structure to blended learning, online learning, and project-based learning. And tonight you're going to hear more about the project-based learning portion of that presentation from last time. I think it's important you hear more specifics. One, just because it's new. It's also kind of a different structure, so it's a chance for you to learn more about the vision for the project-based learning portion in more detail tonight. So with that, I'll hand it over to Mr. Hutchison.
Thank you. Excuse me, as Sandra and Shannon said, I'm Mark Hutchison. I am Director of High School Teaching and Learning for the district. And I'm here to talk with you tonight about Venture Academics, which is Linn-Mar's new project-based learning program. As Shannon had said, and it actually, the stuff that Emily was talking about, is such a great springboard for this, because it's about that project-based piece, that experiential part of learning that we know is so valuable. And again, using Dr. Gustafson's presentation a couple weeks ago about the different types of learning, the different kinds of learning styles, the different ways that we can reach students, that's what this is all about. And it really isn't so much about where we've been or where we're at, it's more about where we're going and the excitement that we have in project-based learning. Okay, Venture. What is Venture? What is our Venture Academics program? Our Venture program, it's a project-based learning opportunity built to serve students through the acquisition and application of foundational knowledge to student-designed ventures. And the quick 15-second explanation of this is students are going to begin by choosing a subject area of interest with a defined set of Linn-Mar high school course associations and follow with learning through standards referenced project-based experiences. In this program, excuse me, we will have a heavy project component. Okay, and as I explain this, one of the things that you're going to see is that we're going to devote 20 credits. It's basically 3 hours a day for a semester long. That's how much time is going to be devoted for project-based learning, a chunk of project-based learning that we're going to call the strand. And in that strand, a major driver of the learning is going to be a project. And in that project, we're going to focus on the universal, Iowa Universal Core Universal Constructs. And by the way, these are common core universal constructs. They're used throughout the nation for different types of project-based learning. This is something that we think that we can use project-based learning to really focus on, emphasize with our students. Venture projects and experiences, and we've talked about this with the standards-based learning, but they are going to target levels 3 and 4 proficiencies, which are transfer, advanced application, extension, and innovation using foundational knowledge and skill. And one of the things that I want to point out about this too is that our project-based learning experiences, it is going to be a lot about advanced applications and extension and those kinds of things, as opposed to just being this, we need to serve a different kind of learning style, okay? There is that. There is that. At the same time, we have 2,200 students in the high school, okay? And we need to provide opportunities for them to reach up into those higher order thinking skills. Many of you have seen this before, okay? This is Bloom's taxonomy. It's the newer version, so Clark, you might not remember this.
Thank you for that.
This is the newer version of Bloom's taxonomy. And in this, one of the things that we noticed, there's a couple pieces here. One is that you notice it's a triangle, there's a base, and you also notice that there's a hierarchy, okay? There's a peak. And in our traditional learning, we do spend a lot of time in this area remembering, understanding, application. We absolutely do in traditional learning and in the classroom environment. Believe it or not, we also spend a tremendous amount of time in analysis and evaluation. We really do, okay? We have tremendous teachers in the high school. They are working very hard at these higher order thinking skills. The one area that we have a little bit of trouble with is this area of creation, creativity, innovation, okay? And this is not just something that people are born with. It's a skill that we can learn and we can develop, okay? To get there, though, we have to build a base and we have to climb to that higher order thinking skill. And that's important because of the way that we're going to structure our program. We're going to rely heavily on this sort of structure, okay, with a solid foundation, with the building to the higher order thinking skills with our project-based program. Why venture? You know, we have our mission statement right over here on the wall. It's our mission to inspire learning, unlock potential, empower achievement. And the thing about that is, honestly, honest truth, this is what we try to do. This is what our teachers try to do. Our teachers are very focused on these things, in these areas, okay? A lot of, you know, business institutions, whatever, they'll have these taglines that are just meant to kind of pump things up. Okay, that's not this, all right? And we know that as board members, you work hard at this. Our administration works hard at this. Our teachers definitely work hard at this. We believe that we can consistently deliver on these things with authentic experiences. Why venture? A recent National Gallup student opinion poll. Okay, I'm using 2017 data because it had a nice graphic that went with it. Okay, but the 2020 data is very, very similar, almost the same. Surveyed students who are engaged with school. In grade 5, 74% of students report that they are engaged with school. By grade 12, there's 34% of students that report that they're engaged with school. That's not acceptable. Why venture? I'm just going to use this as an example, and it's really not about this, but it kind of explains some things. Okay, this is a Linn-Mar High School Science Club trip taken to Costa Rica. That's Arenal Volcano in the back. Yes, I'm in this picture, but it's not about me. Carla Blakely, this is AP Physics teacher, is here. This is Steve Meeker. He is the AP Biology teacher, providing some experience for some of our students, again, back in 2007. Okay, this is a picture of one of our students. It had several great students in this group. This is Katie Kemple in Costa Rica in 2007. Here's Katie again, trying on a tortoise shell. When we came back from this trip, I remember talking with Dina Kemple, Katie's mom, and Dina said, Katie knows what she wants to do now. And I thought that was very powerful. It's something that I'll always remember. And it shows you the value of experiences. This is Katie today, 2020 anyway. It's now Dr. Katie Kemple. She's at the University of Queensland, Australia. She has a PhD in conservation science, a master's in marine biology, a bachelor's in environmental science, and a bachelor's in French. All right, now, it wasn't necessarily this trip that sparked her, okay? But I imagine the trip didn't hurt. Because this is a young lady that grew up in Marion, Iowa, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. She grew up 1,000 miles from any ocean in the middle of a bunch of cornfields, basically. And she left Linn-Mar High School to pursue a degree in marine biology, okay? Again, this isn't about Katie. We have lots of Katies. We have, all sorts of experiences that we provide to our students. We have sent our French club to France. We've sent our Spanish club to Spain, to Mexico. We have sent our dance group to Florida. Our music people go to Florida on a regular basis. Our music people have gone to Europe. Okay, and on. Okay, we have had these kinds of experiences that we provided for Linn-Mar High School students because we know how valuable they are. Okay, they're valuable not just for the learning, but they're valuable for the spark. Why venture? Well, Dr. Gutson talked about this a couple weeks ago. We have a really strong traditional based learning program. We've extended that into blended, where we have part online, part face-to-face, and it's been really valuable and successful. We are now experimenting. I shouldn't say it that way. We're not experimenting anymore, okay? We're getting after it in online learning, okay? Because of circumstances. And this is an area that we want to continue to provide in, and we want to continue to grow. The project-based area also. This is an area that, again, for the future, we want to really try to grow. And we want to grow this for opportunity for 2,200 students. This is where venture fits. Why venture? Here are the three main reasons. Excuse me, student access, availability of resources, and continuity of learning. I'll touch on these a little bit more detail here. Student access. By having an on-site project-based learning program, we can really knock down some barriers for student participation. I talk about the trip to Costa Rica. Yeah, it's a great trip. It was a great experience for 20 students, okay? It was a great experience for 20. What we would like to do is we would like to provide great experiences, project-based experiences for 2,200, okay? And that's a big deal. So proximity is a big deal. Okay? We have access. If we design the program so that it is its home base is here, okay, we have great access for our students. And the barrier or proximity, we have some students that they would be involved in project-based learning if it were easy to get to, if it didn't take, a lot of, I have to get all my stuff collected, I have to get in the car, I have to go someplace, I have to come back, I have to unpack my stuff, go back to my traditional. Okay, if we had something that was available, close, it would knock down that barrier. Transportation. We know that transportation is a barrier. We know that that barrier can be overcome. At the same time, one of the things that I've heard from students is that transportation when we need to have a special situation to get me from A to B. That's hard because, you know, I might have, you know, low income or whatever, other students, they look at that. It's not everybody that feels that way, but there are some, and we really want to try to avoid that, okay? The amount of time that it takes to move from one place to another is critical, and timing is critical. We have before school marching band, we have after school athletic practices, we have music that runs 4th period, we have music that runs 5th period. Okay, these are things that they don't move very well in our schedule, and so timing, being able to move from one place to another, being able to move from a traditional setting into a project-based setting, just, it's got to work, it's got to fit, okay, in order to make this happen for students. We also think it's important that we really commit, and we are committed, and we've been committed, but we're committed to reducing that opportunity gap. Excuse me, we don't want to leave students out, okay, and we want to make sure that this is a program available to 9th graders, 12th graders, students that are low SES, students that have means, AP students, students in special education, okay. Across the board, we want to make this opportunity available for our students. Why venture? Availability of resources. This is also a big deal. One of the great things about being in a high school of 2,200 students is we have a lot of resources. And we have a lot of facilities, great facilities. We have classrooms, meeting rooms, kitchens, shops, labs, gymnasiums, fitness rooms, to name a few. We also have a lot of materials, art supplies, metal, wood, culinary equipment. We have technical equipment within reach, 3D printers, high-end computers and related software, centrifuges, lathes, specialized glassware, heart monitors, microscopes, all at our fingertips. We have people. We have 121, and this is our certified staff that have teaching endorsements, 121 highly qualified subject area specialists on campus. These are specialists in everything from French and Spanish to industrial technology to science, math, social studies, you name it. Those are available. And we have those endorsements that are critical in Iowa high school education. In order to provide course credit, teachers have to have the right content area endorsements. We have over 300 content area endorsements in our high school system right now. Why venture? Continuity of learning. And this is honestly, this is getting to be a bigger and bigger thing for us. As Jeff talked a couple weeks ago, we had traditional, online, blended, project-based. These are areas or ways that we want to provide learning. And our traditional education, we have a certain set of standards that our students are they're gaining proficiency in. Excuse me. We have the same set of standards for our online students, same set of standards for our blended students, and we'll have the same set of standards for our project-based students. If a student takes their general biology online, they're going to have to maintain or gain a certain proficiency in a set of standards. If they take it project-based, they'll need to gain a certain proficiency in that set of standards. Managing that scope and sequence is really important. And one of the things that is challenging at times is to make those connections as we move from one type of learning to another. So for instance, if we have English 1 and English 3, English 2 is in the middle, and we need to be able to make that connection, and we need to be able to make that connection seamlessly, and we need to be able to make that connection seamlessly across platforms. And so that's another reason why venture will serve us well. proficiency achievement on identical standards at equivalent levels to those earning credit for standalone courses. We had talked about that just a second ago. And the broad availability of project-based credit-bearing courses, and this is also a big deal. We'll talk about the strands that we're planning on offering, excuse me, but what you're going to see is you're going to see a little bit of breadth with the types of coursework that we're going to be able to attend to in a project-based learning environment. And this, honestly, it is our belief that this is just the beginning. We also think it's very important that we focus on the reciprocal relationship between traditional online, blended, and project-based learning. And I say that like this. Our project-based learning, that experience, should feed our traditional learning. Okay? It should be that experience, that thing that students look at that's motivating, that they strive for, that they try to achieve. Okay? It should feed their involvement, their engagement in the traditional learning, in the standards, in the base, in the lower part of Bloom's taxonomy at times. Okay? It should really feed that. All right? And in the same way, our base should really feed our project-based. Okay? So our traditional coursework, whether it's in statistics or earth science or whatever it is, that those foundational things that we are building should really be there in order to access and create great project work and not just great engagement, but great production in our projects. And another thing that we think is really valuable and important is that whether it is online, blended, project-based, or traditional, that teachers that are using each one of these methods, in fact, it's very likely in our system that we would have a project-based teacher that returned to a traditional classroom later in the day and worked with the content in a different manner, attended to the same standards, okay? But though that single teacher is able to move between platforms, at the same time, if we had a situation where a teacher was only teaching in a blended way, they could collaborate very easily and will with our project-based teachers, okay, by providing a venture in the way that we have planned. Big question. Why now? We know what is happening now in the world of work and careers. We think we know what the future looks like, okay? We really do need to make a commitment to teaching creativity and innovation in our schools, okay? It can't just be, we need to get them ready for the assembly line that they're going to be working on when they graduate. It's not that way anymore, all right? These skills are incredibly valuable and things that we need to really make a commitment towards. We also know that schools have a reduced ability to provide learning transfer experiences. And again, you looked at that Bloom's taxonomy and you start to get into those upper levels and you think about a 45-minute class. And today it's only 40 minutes because we have this assembly, and on, but we have those kinds of things. We have more requirements that are being put on us by the state and different institutions. We have limited budgets and those sorts of things. So, excuse me, there are difficulties in a traditional classroom to really reach up into those higher levels of thinking, have the time to do it and have the setup, I guess, to reach it and do it well. Systemically increase the availability, reinforce traditional learning, increase learning transfer opportunity for all Linn-Mar High School students. Why now? I put this up there in a nice way, but basically what I'm saying is it's time to stop kicking the can down the road. Okay, we've been talking about this for a while. Okay, and it's time to do it. It's time to get on it and do it and make it available for all of those kids over there. We have had conceptual planning for an on-site experiential learning program since about 2018. We've advanced the planning substantially since August, and we still have another 7 months that we know that there are some details of execution that we still need to work out, but we've got a lot ready to go. We really do. And if we had to go tomorrow, we could probably do it, okay? And I would say that if we had to go tomorrow, by February, we could be doing it pretty well. All right, so here's how it works. Our project-based teaching will be provided in strands, and the strands are designed as immersive experiences in defined content areas with defined content-associated coursework. And yes, I used define twice up there, and I meant to. It is the content areas are going to be set. These are areas that are going to be strand offerings for students, and then the defined content-associated coursework. We find it to be more possible that we can deliver really quality learning in a concentrated way with defined content-associated coursework. At inauguration, at any given time, 5 teachers will staff the Venture Center, and they will work with students in semester-long 3-hour super blocks. The project-based teachers will lead strand learning in half-day semester-long increments. And I'll explain all this in a little bit more detail. Here are the initial planned strands: graphic arts, life science, business foundations, advanced business, behavioral science, writing, health, earth science, environmental science, and government and law. And you can see there's a really nice breadth there of offerings. Now, that's not to say that we couldn't go into foreign language. That's not to say that we won't be going into mathematics, okay, and some of these other areas, because we will, all right? But at inauguration, this is what our plan is. Each of the strands will include complementary coursework totaling 15 content area credits and 5 project work credits. And our projects will be supported by community advisors, mentors, or partners where it makes sense, okay? And we're definitely going to work for that. We're going to try to make sure that every project, whether they have a partner or not, remains to be seen. But we are going to reach out for advisors and mentors for all of our project groups. Okay, I've already talked about this, but I want to use an example here. For example, this is the way that Health 1 and Health 2 might be delivered to a student that was really interested in the health sciences. Okay, they would have Health 1 and Health 2 combined together. The content standards for those would be met through direct instruction, collaboration, health-related project work during semester 1 of 21-22 from 1 to 4 p.m. Okay, so that's semester 1, 90 days long, 3 hours a day, half a day, and all sorts of different ways that students will attend to the standards and attend to the learning. During this time, teachers will track student performance and learning outcomes and advise student project work, and the students will earn course credit by demonstrating proficiency on course priority standards. All right. I don't really want to go through this slide, but it's to help interpret, some of the stuff that follows. But basically, these are things that we need to care about because it allows us to deliver our program, deliver it right, deliver it well, and to meet the expectations of the state of Iowa. Okay, we have units of instruction, FTE, which is how many teachers we're going to be able to allot to different aspects. Our course numbers establish where our course is at in our sequence of courses here at Linn-Mar High School. The SCED code, this is what determines not only what the course content is, actually it doesn't define what the course content is generally created by the school, and then this is what characterizes that course content in the eyes of the state is the SCED code, and it also determines which teachers are endorsed and able to teach that particular course. And then standards of expected learnings and standard proficiencies are the defined levels of learning necessary to earn course credit. Okay, so I've broken this out so you can kind of see just a slice of it. All right, this is semester 1, and these are, okay, semester 1 across the top. This is the same thing that this is, and it's the same thing that this is. okay? Block 1, block 2, block 1, block 2, okay? So this is 2 blocks in the morning of semester 1. The government law strand will meet in a defined location, and during that time, student will earn credits for government, they'll earn credits for law and the Constitution, they will earn credits for intro to college writing, and they will earn credits for venture, which is their project work credits. Now, the way that it's set up, it looks like teachers are going to come in. Quarter 1, they're going to teach government during block 1, then block 2, they're going to switch to college writing, and then during quarter 2, they're going to do law and Constitution, and then finally, in quarter 2, during the second block, they'll be able to work on their project, and that's not it at all, okay? The project work is going to drive the learning, and the learning is going to drive the project work, okay? That reciprocal relationship. So we might start off with our project and then switch to some work with government standards. Maybe there will be some direct instruction. Maybe there'll be some other experiences. Maybe then we'll switch to law and Constitution standards, followed up by some more project work. That project work will maybe drive some writing, okay? And that writing then will lead into more project work, and it'll be all of the standards will be mixed together. They'll be delivered at a time appropriate to the student learning, appropriate to the project. The project, again, will be supporting all of these different aspects and basically driving all these different aspects, okay? Also note that this amount of time, I think it's 67.5 hours over the course of the semester, 67.5, 67.5, 67.5. So really what we're saying is that we've got about 70 hours of, if you just use just the project work and said this is his own standalone class, be about 70 hours of work, okay? But that's not the way that it's going to be. We expect the project work to actually be more like 140 hours of the class, or what's the next one? 210 hours of the class, okay? So in other words, that project is really going to drive a lot of the learning. Okay, so each day, 4 subject-focused strands in the morning, 4 in the afternoon. That's first semester. Same thing second semester, 4 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon. We have those 10 total strands that we're going to be starting off with. Most of our strands have an English component to them, and there's a reason for that. English is a big deal, okay, and it's something that, you know, we want to encourage our students to write and communicate. We want to encourage our students to read. We want to help them with their writing and help them with their reading, and we feel like we can do that if we can kind of latch on to some of those areas that they're extremely interested in. I signed up for the life science strand because I'm extremely interested in life science. I do not want to write about Shakespeare, okay, but I will gladly write about the workings of the human heart, okay? And so this is what we're trying to do with our strand work and weaving in the English component. Again, strands earn 20 credits per turn. And just for reference, 80 credits if you use 20 in every part, 20 in the morning, 20 in the afternoon, each semester. That's the max a student would have, and that's 80 credits total. So this is one quarter of a potential completely full schedule is what they would earn in a strand. Okay, so how does this look in practice? And just so you know, I switched the axes here accidentally, but the quarters are now going up and down the side and across the top. These are our class periods. But what would happen is a student might sign up for the venture life science strand, and in quarter 1 and quarter 2, they participate in that life science strand for all the way up through 4th block, okay? Then they come back in the afternoon during quarter 1. They have design art basics, followed by concert choir, followed by geometry. Day's done. Okay, next quarter, venture life science again, all the way in the morning. In the afternoon, intro to psych, concert choir, geometry, okay? So, and you can see during the second semester, this particular student doesn't have a strand. They could have scheduled the strand. We're going to offer them, okay? But we're just showing, I'm just trying to show how some of the other coursework might work in here. Another example, this example involves a student that has Symphony Strings early in the morning. So and they want to stay with that. So their writing strand is going to be happening second semester in the afternoon. They also have time release worked in there. in the middle of their day. Another student, this student happens to have 3 AP courses that they're taking. In addition to, we're going to provide AP Environmental Science in a project-based way. Okay, it will have its own strand. 15 credits will be delivered. Our teacher is really excited about this. 15 credits will be delivered in the content area, 5 more credits in the project area. Again, in this case, it's second semester, second half of the day. And finally, a business foundation strand. And notice also that we have, these are the courses that the student will get credit for. They'll get credit for Intro to Business Marketing, Communications, and a venture project. I want to finish with this. I've already went way too long. Look, Linn-Mar's had a lot of successes over the years. A lot of schools have. But I feel particularly fortunate to have been here, to have my kids go through here. I know a lot of you have had your students go through here. We've been really fortunate with the things that we've been able to provide for Linn-Mar students and the way that things have gone for them. But it's also true that we've worked hard for that. You guys have worked hard for that. Our administrators have worked hard for that. Our teachers have worked extremely hard for that, and our kids have worked hard for that. Okay, but knowing that, and you guys have seen this quote before, but I think it's completely applicable to this. Even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. And honestly, that's where we're at. And I just want you to know that Dr. Gustafson, our teaching staff, other administrators in the district, it's very, very important to keep an eye to the future, continue to grow, to continue to progress, and to continue to get stronger and stronger to provide for our students. So that is all I have. This, by the way, this is what graduation used to look like. If you remember, yeah. So we'll be back to that soon. So, any thoughts or questions that I can help you with?
Who wants to go first?
Go for it.
So my first question is a little bit of an echo of the concerns I had last meeting about making sure we get the right students into the right course selections. We're on short time now.
Right.
But my notes, I read Dr. G's emails, so my notes say that student meetings with counselors are next week, and then course registration is the first week of February. That's quick, especially given that I don't think my student knows about this yet.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of communication to be had yet, and I understand that. There has been a bit of a progression here. We wanted to, as soon as the announcement was made, that we would be doing the venture program for our returning big students. So our juniors, there were 31 of those. That announcement was made January 4th or something like that. We then followed that with a little bit more communication just behind the scenes with a couple people, but the bottom line is we wanted to wait to really inform our students until after we've informed the board, okay? So that's where we're at right now. Our next step is to really crank up the communication machine. So we've got that going and definitely planned.
And then my other question was, so you had showed the sample schedules, and one of the things that had come up was there are parts of the high school day that are inflexible, and you like different strands and different things, and you have to have content teachers. So is there flexibility? Like if I want to take the writing strand, but I only have this super block open in the morning, like is there going to be availability to take any 10 strands at any one of the 4 super blocks in a semester? So
in other words, is the writing strand going to be offered in all 4 spaces?
Right.
Yes. At this point, okay, I said yes and I meant no. Okay, so at this point, here's what has to happen. Okay, this is our first year. This is our inaugural year. We believe that we can have at least 24 to 28 students that would sign up for this. Again, 2,200 students in the high school. We may have 4 times that want to have a writing strand, but it's just like any other course that we offer in the high school. These things are these would be an elective way of doing things. So if we don't have enough students to populate a certain section, then we don't offer that. In this case, it's okay, because what happens is then those students would fall back and they would take, say, the writing in a traditional way. So they basically signed up for the writing in a strand, but it's not going to be offered in a strand at a time that will fit for them. And this happens a lot in high school because of different kinds of conflicts. But we still believe that this is something that we can provide for a huge number of our kids, make available, and increase opportunity overall.
You're thinking we have the ability to service 24 to 28 students per strand?
Yes.
Okay. And that would be a significant increase, right? Because what is that, like over 200 students that would be able to do project-based learning in any given semester?
Yeah, it would be. It would be, yeah, exactly. It's 200 students, roughly,
Okay.
each semester.
I think this is awesome. Concerns, I've had concerns about transportation since we started doing Iowa Big. I think it's been a great program, but accessibility is something that came up at this table repeatedly over the last couple of years. And so I'm really enthusiastic about the opportunity, regardless of whether or not I have a driver's license or a car, I can participate. I'm excited about that. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. You know what? I was going to do this, so I slipped in another slide. Our graphic arts teacher is really excited about this, and he actually put together a picture of what this is going to look like 10 years from now, okay? And I need to show that to you, but it didn't make I'm sorry. I'll get that to you sometime. But yeah, it's an exciting, it's an exciting move, and it's got exciting opportunity for the future, so, at least in my estimation.
Question?
I've got some questions. Are you?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
I got about three. How much input from the students went into the design of the venture aspect?
You know, that's a really good question. Direct input, we haven't had direct questioning to students. At the same time, there's a lot of just anecdotal experience that went into the design. So as we talk about the desire to be focused in a content area that isn't available, you know, maybe at Big, the accessibility issues. I mean, a lot of those things, again, anecdotally went into the design, but fair question.
Will they be asked as this grows? Like you said, this is a new thing for Linn-Mar.
Right.
You know, but it's valuable to get input from the people, the students that are going through that, and knowing you the way that I do, I'm sure that's going to happen. When did you get input from Big students?
From Big students, again, anecdotally, yes, and we've had, you know, and here's the thing, again, looking to the future, not so much focused on the present or the past, but I will say that there have been challenges in the past that have come forth from that experience, and so those things were heard as well as all the good things, because there are a lot of good things, and I absolutely will commend Big for the experiences that our students have had. You know, they've had some tremendous experiences. Let me go back really quick too. I have reached out to several people about an advisory board for this, have had commitment from some counselors, from Janessa Carr has committed to be part of the advisory council, Amanda Hayek has committed to be part of the advisory council as a tag person, Teresa Gale has committed as a student support services person, and anyway, we have that in the works that's developing and growing. And one other thing, when you talk about the student input for this, one of the things that is really valuable student input is how they sign up for courses, okay? A lot of the strands are based on where our great needs are, okay? We have, you know, you see 2 business strands there. There's a reason for that, okay? We've got a bunch of kids that are interested in business, and we need to provide for them, and we need to provide experiences for them. So they weren't just like, oh, let's do this. It was more like, gosh, we have high requests in this area. Let's provide something there. okay? And the same thing with the life science strand, and the same thing with the government strand and all those kinds of things. Other questions, sorry.
And my other question I had is that as you listed all those different strands up there, which shows a large variety, how many teachers were directly consulted into this design as to how what you showed us tonight? I mean, if you ask them, do you want to be a part of this, that type of thing, versus this is what you're going to do, I just wanted to know how the faculty is accepting this new venture project.
Right.
And if they're willing to go along with a lot of this.
Also a fair question. So prior to Christmas break, we had a couple of meetings, virtual meetings, where staff were invited to listen about this and also to let us know if they would be interested in providing any online teaching or project-based teaching after listening to some of this information. Okay, we had 18 teachers that were interested in project-based learning providing in different areas. Okay, I thought that was outstanding. We had about a dozen, maybe 13, that were interested in providing the online type of teaching. So and with regard to individual teachers, I've talked to our graphic arts teacher. I've talked to 2 or 3 of our science teachers. I talked to 3 business teachers this morning. All were very, very excited about it, very interested in it. Actually, I talked to 2, and they gave me information about the 3rd. Anyway, so the idea that we are talking to teachers, we had a meeting with some English teachers the other day. Our teacher leaders have been talking to different people. So there's been a lot of communication, not necessarily all of it directly from me or from Dr. Gustafson.
Well, the interesting thing is that after what you just said, the way blended learning started and how it's grown, and then you have discussed with 18 teachers that were interested in that, I see the possibility of this growing in also. Well, we hope so.
Yeah, thank you.
Because the bottom line is what's best for our students, not only why they're here in the years of high school, but more importantly, what they do after they graduate.
Right.
You know, like Katie, that's just one example of just a tremendous person as I knew her as a student, and then going the way she did. Be interesting if she still has her tortoise shell.
No, she's a great, I still think of her as a kid. Obviously, she's a Dr. Katie, but no. And again, as you said, just one example of many students that have had experiences. I mean, you could probably, Mr. Weaver, you could probably name a dozen students without, taking a breath that have had experiences at Linn-Mar High School that have sparked them into something career-wise or a great future. So.
Yes, I could. I've been very.
Yeah, you probably named 2 dozen without
Do you
taking.
have any questions that you'd like or comments?
Mark's already answered most of my questions long before this, but I do have 2 I'll ask tonight. If a student is interested in multiple strands, how would the credit be allocated for like the writing portion? Because, it's identified in your example as, college writing in all the strands. But if they take 2 strands, are they going to get, could it be like comp 1 and comp 2? Is it just whatever applies, or does it have to, how does that work?
Yeah, so here's the thing, and this is something that we've talked with our English department over the last week about this, and one of the possibilities is that we have intro to college writing, and then we have college writing, so we have a couple levels, and we divide that out. The other possibility, honestly, and we do this, fundamentals of lifetime fitness, we give them credit during their freshman year, we give them credit for the same course during their sophomore year, okay? That could also be a possibility. And the writing stuff, it's valuable the first time, it's valuable the second time. I think that's something that we could do with that. So we're still looking at that, to be honest, and we'll make a few tweaks with that before we actually commit for student registration.
I'm on board with the communication being in every strand. I think that's excellent. I just want to make sure that students understand that it won't be repetitive. There is value to having that in every strand. My second question is, when you said you could go tomorrow, I know you say 6 months is enough time, and I echo some of Kara's concerns. How are we letting teachers prepare for this when we're still, we're still kind of in survival, hybrid, getting everything done that we can right now? How are we adding this on to, like, when are they having time to adequately prepare for this so that it's not a week before school starts next fall?
Yeah, good question. So we do have some plans to do some professional development with teachers. Once we get through student registration, which will be, late February, we'll know exactly what we're dealing with in terms of the strands. And at that point, we're going to hit the professional development hard. And the plan is right now that we'll take that 7 to 8 o'clock time in the mornings, and we'll go for 2 straight months where we're meeting with that group of teachers. We're doing team building. We're doing work on how to deliver learning in a project-based way. Okay, so we'll hit that very hard during that time, and we'll work on those universal constructs. We'll make sure that we have good scales that are developed for those universal constructs. We'll get all that in place, and then if we need more basically focused preparation, we'll have some summertime that we can do that. But the great thing about the project-based learning and the way that we're doing it is we're not developing the general biology standards, okay? It's just how are we going to help students get to that through their project work. And honestly, part of it is with project-based learning, the teachers are going to have to do some thinking on their feet because the projects are going to drive a lot of that learning, and so those standards are going to be delivered organically as opposed to, we're going to hammer this, hammer this, hammer this. There may be times that we need to do that, but honestly, it is going to be a little bit of that. The standards themselves, our teachers have been working with these standards, teaching to these standards all year and in several years past. So those parts will be solid and easy to transition with.
That actually makes me think of one more question. One of the student comments was things they liked about Iowa Big was that they had a certain amount of control over their learning.
Yeah.
So in this scenario, will all of the students in each strand be working on the same project, or is still that going to be autonomy of this is what I'd really like to work on in this business or writing or science setting project available? Is there going to be some of that maybe? Or?
Absolutely. The thing is, it's not going to be like wide open. So for instance, if you sign up for a life science strand and you decide that you want to do a project on voting rights, that's a different strand, okay? So in that way, it's going to be a little bit more, there's going to be a few more boundaries. At the same time, they signed up for that strand in the first place because they had a huge interest in that. So the project is going to be about that. And with regard to what we expect of our project-based learning experiences, there are two things. We expect fidelity to the subject area. Okay, that's what the students signed up for. That we're going to have fidelity to that, and we're going to have fidelity to the standards for the courses that we are delivering credit for and that are making that up. And partially because that's an important base that we want to build for our students to reach those higher levels of the taxonomy.
I think that this is an exciting development. I know that change is hard, but I think it's necessary for us to continue engaging students in new ways and expanding how many students we can offer this kind of learning to. Because I know based on the passion that we've seen tonight for Iowa Big, there are more students who have that same passion that just don't have access or the ability to do this. So bringing that here, I think, is an incredible step that we, like you said, you've been kicking it around, and I think that doing it is the right move. So I think this is great. I'm excited to learn more as you continue to bring more voices in and collaborate. So
thank you.
Good job.
Jim?
I've always been a big proponent of a project-based program. I remember when we started off, we went to Waukee and looked at Kansas City, and I know we decided at the time to go with Iowa Big because it was there and it's the first step, and we always wanted to bring it in-house. I gotta admit, I was confused as we went through because I thought we were taking Iowa Big, bringing it in Linn-Mar, making it, tweaking it, keeping a program, but that's not what we're doing. So I guess I understand, now a light bulb went off, I understand why we got 20 letters, I guess. You know, and I think, because it's a different, I like project-based learning, I think this is great, but this is not a project-based learning program, I don't think. I think there's benefit to having it outside the high school, soft skills, which we may work on, multiple working, having a daughter that went through big, you work on history and science in one project and kind of strands. So I think maybe we need to, I'm not saying we're going the wrong direction by any means. I'm just saying I understand why we got these today, I guess.
Tim, can you clarify why you say it's not a project-based environment? Because I question that.
Well, I guess maybe I'm confused because I thought we were saying we're going to have it at the high school instead of in a regular classroom, opposed to having it in a. I think a lot of the Iowa Big was the freedom, whether you have it, in the LRC or something like that, but a little off, and it's kind of not the high school. It's a project-based, venture or whatever.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that a little bit at the end to wrap up, because Mark didn't cover that, and then the one slide he mentioned already that he left out kind of shows more the longer-term vision for that piece of it too. So from a facility aspect of it, we're envisioning for year one next year to have it be essentially upstairs at the LRC. So the 5 classrooms, the 5 FTE that Mark talked about may not be the same teachers all day, every day, all semester, but there'll be 5 rooms committed upstairs at least to make that more of a unique learning environment instead of just integrated down the hallway at the high school that way.
Okay.
So there'll be some opportunities to revamp that space upstairs, whether that's the entire upstairs, 5 or 6 classrooms. We still need to work through those details yet, but we do agree there's merit to having it be disconnected to some degree for a different environment and different atmosphere, but also we want the proximity to be close enough for all the resources that Mark mentioned also, whether it's human resources, materials, access for schedules for kids, those type of things back and forth as well. So I apologize if that wasn't communicated clearly on that part. Now, we don't necessarily think the 3rd floor upstairs is the perfect long-term home for that. So as we begin that facility study and process going forward the next several months, that will be part of that bigger conversation too, as far as what does that look like from a design to a location somewhere else in this area as well. So
Because I went through the presentation, maybe I read it, at home thinking a certain way, and then when you got into here, I got confused because I wasn't sure. We're talking 2,200 people. That's a project-based learning, which is where we've been talking about going, but it's not necessarily call it an Iowa Big Linn-Mar version.
no, and like you said, we don't want to have the facility drive the plans. We're trying to have the plan first and then make the facility we have work for that piece. And then eventually, as we develop and even this program evolves, then we start to figure out the facility needs, what that looks like going forward long term for that too. Because one of the things that there's so much to cover in this, and Mark's done a great job, but there's so much more he could go into, and we will go into over time. But the other piece that I think is critical in this, the teacher collaboration piece is really an important part of this, because to really work together as colleagues to help meet those students' needs in those multiple courses, we need to have the space to support them, to give them opportunities to collaborate and work together as well. So that traditional setup needs to look different facility-wise to support that too. So.
And then you mentioned advisory board. I would also encourage you to have business people on there, or community groups, or somebody non-academic maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll have, honestly, we'll have a couple business people on there. We plan to have students on the advisory board. It's you know how they go. It's always difficult to have a board this big and get things done, so we have to find a way to get the right people. But we need representation, and you're right, we do need that. I would also say about the the facility, is it going to be like the perfect? No, but I don't think anybody starts off with exactly what they want. The Model A wasn't a Ferrari. I mean, it just takes a little while. So we are going to get there hopefully with facilities. I know that I've visited the CAP Center in Kansas City and different places like that, and recognize that they also somewhat work in a strand model as opposed to wide open, blank canvas, and then we'll fill in the courses around that. They have more of a focused area for their project work, And so in that way, it would be a little bit more similar. It won't be bringing Iowa Big here because we need it to fit the things we do and where we're going, that sort of thing.
And I'm not too worried about the facility. And I know the CAP Center is a fantastic place. It's where I would want to go to school, right?
Right.
But I'm not asking. I'm just somewhere that's off of
Sure.
over there, maybe. And then I think you mentioned about soft skills. I think that's an important thing as they go through too, just the soft skills as they learn that, because it's a little bit different. So. And are you, as far as getting projects, how are you? Do you have someone that will work that for the teachers, or how does it go into the businesses and getting those, or are you still kind of working through that?
That's a great question, and I think the answer is being worked on.
Okay.
And I do feel like we'll have somebody that's dedicated to that. I don't know what, in what capacity that will be, but we'll have somebody that's dedicated to being that liaison between the business community and the projects.
Rachel, did you have something?
I want to echo a little bit of what Tim said. I guess I would say I think this is project-based learning, but I definitely think that it's different than I had imagined in my head. I did think that we were following a little bit more closely with what we had done at Iowa Big. I don't think that means there's anything wrong with this, and a couple of things that I really like when listening to this, some concerns that I had always had about Big were things like, does this really, are we looking, are the projects driving the content, or is the content driving the projects, if that makes sense? Are those core standards driving the project, or is the project kind of driving what we, say the standards are? You know what I mean? And I just had some real concerns about whether or not Iowa Big English was leaving students with the same level of proficiency as like a traditional English class. So I think in a lot of ways, what I see tonight would help with some of those concerns. And I like that. And I love that it is more accessible and that a lot more students will be able to participate. But I do think it loses a little bit of the essence of Big. And I mean, some of that, we heard from parents and students. One of the things, you make a great point about having kind of the tools at our disposal when we do it on campus. But when you do it off campus, you have some things that you gain that you don't, you know what I mean? Where you are taking kids out of their environment. And that in and of itself can be a really excellent tool for learning. Another thing you'll lose in this that I think is unfortunate, although I don't really know the workaround, is that interaction with kids from other districts who have different experiences, who are living in different areas and living different lives a little bit. I mean, I know it's all from within the same, general area, but still, like, students at Cedar Rapids may have a very different experience than students at Linn-Mar or students from Prairie or what have you. So, but I think that, I guess some of this stuff, we will see how it goes as things continue to evolve, and I don't think that any of those are reasons why we shouldn't do what we're doing, because, Iowa Big or no, project-based learning, like you talked about, development of those higher order skills and the way that project-based learning is able to make opportunities for that in different ways than traditional learning does. I think that that's, a really great opportunity for more of our students. The last thing I'm just going to say is that I just want to be careful that we keep a close eye on how much we align or allow business to drive education, because we are doing that. We had Community Promise in here, and that's a spot where we're sort of allowing business to drive you know, things in our district to a degree. I'm not saying it's, you know, community promise is driving things in a huge way, but I'm saying that, you know, when we do these projects that, you know, if we allow business to be the driver of that, you know, I don't know, I just, you know, think you can go down a slippery slope, and business has different objectives than education, and so I think we need to be careful about that. That's not to say that we can't or should not work with the business community when that makes sense, but I think you always have to go into that relationship with eyes wide open, and I just, you know, I just want us to use caution. So,
yeah.
otherwise,
I think that one as well, and that's why I think it's really important with our standards-focused approach for each of the strands, because that is very education targeted to begin with for us for all of our, not just the courses, but also the projects then. But that's where that business partnership then becomes important to support that effort, but can't lose focus on that standard
and maybe
driving the work.
Maybe venture is better at that than big. Because that was another concern I'd always had about big. Just that, again, that potential, which is what is driving what we're teaching and how we're teaching it. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, that's just, you know, again, just something that somebody should say out loud before the whole thing goes, you know, gets going down the road.
I totally agree with you. I think it's important that the students are driving the projects, not that a business is showing up and saying, hey, can I get an intern to do this project?
Yeah.
So
Oh.
I totally
You know,
agree.
as you guys say that.
Or to have their name put out there, or, you know what I mean? I'm not saying it's inherently a bad thing, but anytime you partner, you can have potential for problems. So it's just something that I think we should go into with eyes wide open.
Yeah.
I would agree to a point, but I also think it's dangerous to silo ourselves away from the business community because we're afraid that.
I didn't say silo.
No.
I didn't say silo.
I know, that was my word. I was just saying, I think
Or
we need.
suggest siloing.
Was my word. I use that word. I just think that it's important to help our students not only understand education and learn through standards that are education-minded, but also understand the business world, whatever business that is that they're going to go into, the expectations of that. And I think if we go too far in either direction, then they're not properly prepared for the next step.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. But you know, there's value in a liberal arts education that has nothing to do with how we're going to make money in the future. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, this is
again, but you certainly are far more able to drive the liberal arts portion of that in a traditional classroom setting than in a project-based classroom setting, particularly if business is sort of driving projects. Because what kind of projects are you? What kind of projects are you going to be doing that are going to be, you know, musing on Shakespeare?
But I think that's the beauty of multiple learning paths, is that every student has a different way of learning. So I think that the student who wants to study Shakespeare probably isn't going to pick the earth science strand.
Sure, but whether they like learning in a particular way or find the value in it. I mean, how many of us sat here in 6th grade and asked why we had to do algebra when we were going to ever have to use that in our life? Well, it turns out we do. But, you know, I don't regularly discuss Shakespeare with anybody in my life, and yet that had value as well. So, again, you know, you just have to be careful, I think. You just have to, you know, be looking out for the cones in the road kind of thing.
I think you make a great point, and also a great point. In fact, as we've planned this conceptually, our desire is to be very flexible with that and student-driven, okay? So student chooses their project, but engaging our community in, I'm thinking of this in like 3 tiers. So we have people that are advisors, maybe an hour a week, you know, just providing technical expertise to the project. We have people that are mentors. Maybe we have students that want to get into that career field and they want to mentor, but they don't have enough time to actually spend 5-6 hours a week with those students on a project, so they spend a couple hours a week in a mentoring relationship. Or we have maybe a full-blown partner, which is, the project itself is of value to the business. Maybe a business needs a marketing campaign, and so they talk, you know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so we engage in that way. So we want to be flexible with that, but the student voice and the student choice in terms of the projects, that's huge. That's something that we absolutely want to provide. So again, it remains to be seen, but at the same time, I think conceptually we've got the idea that we're going to be very flexible on that so that we can provide for those that want the career experience and those that want maybe more of a wide open. Katie, if she would have tried to find a project for marine science, she'd have had to drive a long ways, But at the same time, that was her passion, that was her area. We should be able to support that. And that's what we're going to try to do.
Gary, did you have anything you'd like to
No,
add?
just appreciate your information.
Yeah.
It's good.
And Mark, before we let you go, I'm sorry, Sandra.
No, go for it.
Just as a clarification for myself, with the venture aspect, students will still be able to go off campus, to work on these projects, whether it's a business thing or a construction. Because I look at like Splinters that did with Big and how they took the environment and used this project that raised, I think, anywhere between $8,000 and $14,000 and stuff like that. So they'll still be able to go off campus to do some of this interaction, whether it's with a business or a healthcare service or environmental thing.
Yeah,
And I'm just
absolutely.
asking for my own clarification.
Yeah, in fact, this will be their home base, if it, in fact, it does happen here. Home base, all right? It doesn't mean contained 3 hours a day, 90 days. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just
Thank
want
you
to
very
say
much.
thank you for, from our point of view, for all the hard work, and we look forward to seeing what's happening in the future and continue, and we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And again, any questions, please send them my way. And anybody that's listening out there, if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Dr. Gutson would be happy to help. And
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate that. Okay, we'll go on to the board visit that we had at Boulder Peak. Most of us were able to come. Would someone like to comment about our time there? Anything you'd like to say?
It was just another great visit.
Yeah, it was.
It went well.
I think it's one of the highlights of being on the board is being able to visit the different schools and see what everyone's doing and seeing everything in action. And at least that's my take on it, to see everybody doing all that they do. Anyone else like to? Anything?
Gym looked great with students.
It's finally done and ready to go, so
Yes.
that was awesome.
That was nice, but no, I like seeing, when we listened to the buildings are going to have this and this and this, and then actually see the integrated technology and how it's all coming together and, the pods, and it's very impressive. And I just want to see that continue in our other buildings.
Yeah, one of the things that impressed me as we went through this is the enthusiasm that the teachers had and the enthusiasm that the administration had. I mean, it was just like, hey, wait till we show you this and show you that, and you get caught up in that, and then you go to some of the different sections and the levels, and you see kids working here, but then they might be on virtual learning, and over here's the classroom, and how easy it is to collaborate back and forth. And I was impressed with a couple of the teachers. They came up, and we were just talking in our group, and they said, it was really kind of interesting. A couple of our students walked up to us the other day and said they understand how difficult it is for us, and they hope that they're doing their best job. And, for somebody in 5th and 6th grade to have the maturity to say that to an adult made me feel that they were comfortable and that our teachers were doing everything they possibly could. And, it was just really fantastic, the energy and the kids wanted to be there. The only thing that bothers me is that we had it set up at Boulder Peak, and everybody could be in their own place in the lunchroom, which was great. And as soon as the kids left, the custodial staff was on it just like that, and everything was cleaned up before the next group could get in there. But I wonder now that we are K-6 in the building, is every building trying to keep that 6 feet distance, or at least an appropriate distance in our lunchrooms now? Because it's easy when you do with a hybrid, because you can spread everybody out, but we're not that way anymore, especially K-6, because that's our older building. I mean, K-4, that's our older buildings. And so I was just wondering, because we have, one grade out of there, are we being uniform on how we try and spread those kids out in those?
They've gone to
lunchrooms?
four lunch periods, correct? Four
Yeah,
lunch
the intermediate
sessions.
buildings have gone to additional lunch sessions to help spread out.
Yeah.
As well as our elementaries, and trying to spread them out as much as possible. No, are they able to provide the same amount of social distancing when everybody's in session versus a hybrid? No, I can't confidently say that's happening all the time. Each building is doing the best they can with their facility and their numbers to do as much social distancing as they can. But is that always 6 foot? No, and we've said that from day one, that where it's not possible, we will do our very best to continue to do that. You'll see that if you're able to make the Westfield board visit this week as well. So I think the timing of that's really good, because your last board meeting or visitor 2, I believe, at least one anyway, has been a hybrid. Now we're back to more in person again as well on Thursday, so you'll get to see that difference, because there is a difference.
Yeah, okay.
Still as many social distancing practices and mitigation practices as
Well,
possible.
the parents of the district, I think, and just everybody involved in our district, we were really concerned what things were going to turn out after Thanksgiving, okay? And they did a tremendous job. Our percentages came down, and we were, wow. But since Christmas is a longer holiday, okay, and now we're coming back, and I noticed it on our chart, we've gone up a little bit, but not into categories that are we're concerned about now. And so when we bring them back, and I know it's too soon to tell, it's probably going to be another week and a half or 2 weeks before we can see how everything plans out. I just, Hector Bechter, it's just one of those things. Everybody's done a good job. I hope everybody continues to do a good job, staff and teachers in the district, and we can get to where all of us want to be.
I have seen the lunchrooms at 2 of our elementaries that are older, so they sit every other seat and zigzag. So it's not 6 feet, it maybe isn't 3 feet, but they're doing what they can.
Yeah, well, that's the important thing, and that's why I asked the question. If we have that, and it's uniform through all the K-4 buildings, we're doing the best we can, and that's all we can do, considering the space provided, and that's what I was hoping for. So thank you, Brett.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to Marion City Council. We have December 17th and 7th of January. I think Gary was one and Rachel the other. Rachel, I think you were December, were you? Okay. Do you have anything to report?
No, nothing to report.
All right, and Barry? Okay, then we'll move on to CTE. We had a CTE committee meeting, which is Career and Technical Education Committee. I'm sorry, I hate when people do that. And that is Britt and Barry and myself. And many of the things that we talked about had to do with some of the things that were going on for our project-based learning. There was some overlay, I think, in our discussions, and it was very beneficial. We're able to talk with the business teachers, at least the one where I sat with, the business people, and what their project-based part was going to kind of look like. And they were, I like every bit of change. There's always a little apprehension, but I think everyone was pretty excited. Okay. Barry, did you have something you'd like to add?
You're correct.
Okay.
That's good.
No, it was the same as what you're reporting. I was in the business group too, so same conversation.
All right. We'll move on from that. Anyway, it sounds exciting and good things are happening there. So Cabinet update, turn to learn. Janice?
Yeah, several things to update you on. One is good to get back to school again after the holidays. As you know, our hybrid was for the first 4 days at pre-K 6 last week, and then we transitioned to fully in person for those levels on Friday. Really good to get all of our students back in the buildings. That was definitely the vibe in the schools I was in Friday and Monday as well. I know every time we make a transition, there's an apprehension for everybody that it's a change, it's hard. So I'm really, really hopeful we can provide a continuity to people that we haven't been able to for the last several months. It's easy to forget from September to almost Thanksgiving, if I remember right. We were pretty steady as far as the model we were doing, and that was to everybody's benefit. Obviously, there's still a lot to deal with COVID-wise, so I don't know if we'll be able to do that, but that's certainly our goal going forward, and we want to keep kids in session, but as much as possible, really provide some continuity for students, for families, for staff members as well. So I'll talk about some of the COVID numbers here in a minute too, but that's really important for everybody, I think, right now. That we knew coming in this year there's going to be changes, and it was going to happen from time to time. And we've experienced that, and we think we've been good at that, but it does come with a challenge for everybody. So hopefully we can try to find some consistency for everybody. It would be really beneficial. So on a non-COVID related issue today, I just want to make sure board members are aware in case you hear something out there. We did have kind of a little smoke alarm, fire alarm thing at Novak today where fire trucks had to come, and it'd be a mechanical issue. So just in case you heard about that, at the end of the day, we did have to exit the building, had some surprises there. Everything's good to go.
Shannon,
We're back on place.
There's not enough going on in your life in the district, and so somebody needed to stoke up a little excitement in the district.
Exactly.
Huh?
So
A little flair.
speaking of continuity, we don't want to have too many days in a row of normal school. So for Novak, if you remember earlier this year, they had some plumbing issues we had to deal with and potentially have some challenges there too. So they're just getting hit by all kinds of interesting challenges too. So another one that I wanted to touch base with the board, and we'll be sharing this information with the community as well. Snow days. Right now, we have a unique opportunity this year that the governor's given us a 1-year leeway on snow days that we can have virtual learning on snow days and count it as school days. We've not had that authority in the past, and as of right now, we don't have that authority in the future. That may change this legislative session that just began today. We'll find out, but as of right now, we just have it for this year. So my hope and my plan is that I'd like to try that virtual learning for a snow day if the opportunity arises this year, but I don't want to make that our automatic route we go with. So my basic parameters I'm going to share, that I shared with staff on Friday, shared with the board again on Friday, and we'll share with the community tonight and then again later on this week. Typically, any snow day that is a advance notice one, a couple of years ago, we had the polar vortex, and we knew a couple of days in advance we weren't having school. In my mind, that's a perfect opportunity to announce virtual learning. Kids can bring materials home, staff can bring materials home, families can plan, coordinate, and go that route. If it's more of the last minute, having to make a tough decision at 5 or 5:15 in the morning, and then make an announcement, that's most likely going to be a traditional snow day. I just say that just because it's hard enough for families to scramble on snow days. If you don't know what you're planning for, that even makes it that much more difficult, I think. So I think we'll see how those play out. That'll kind of be our basic parameters we'll use this year. And then honestly, the best scenario of all is we don't have any of those days at all to even worry about, and we don't get to test it out.
That's a good approach, especially because what is more joyous when you're a kid than to wake up and find out that it's a snow day? So I kind of like the idea of having it in between, to not take that. That's a childhood thing, and I know we want to catch up on learning and all that, but sometimes it's just nice to have a snow day. So I think that's a good approach.
Sometimes everybody needs a snow day. So.
I read an article about a possible another polar vortex situation.
Oh, you take that back.
I just sent it to you, but then the last line was, also this could just not happen at all. So.
Like,
Let's hope that's the case. Most forecasts work that way, yeah. And that's good.
So we're going to start to communicate that out to families just so they know ahead of time kind of what our thinking is, and then we'll coordinate and communicate event to event afterwards too. So let's talk a little bit of COVID. Wouldn't be a board meeting if we didn't. First piece I want to touch base on is the vaccination update. Obviously, if you've been following things statewide and even nationwide, the vaccine is not rolling out as fast as everybody originally thought it was going to, so that's very discouraging for us. Had 2 meetings with Linn County Public Health last week. Both of them very similar in the general tone. And I think I shared this with you last month as well. If you're expecting a flow of vaccine coming into the county, it's barely a trickle, and some days it's a drip, and some days the faucet's completely turned off, is the analogy they keep using. So as I shared with staff last week, we are basically being informed it will be months more than weeks before we see vaccines for staff. And I don't say that to be pessimistic, but that's just the information we're being told, which is interesting because our staff is in category 1B, which is still pretty high in the hierarchy of people needing the vaccine. So they do feel like come springtime, we'll start to see a much more steady flow coming to the counties, and then they can go from there. But I think if we're holding out hope for a vaccine to give us immediate relief from school-wise and community-wise, we're probably fooling ourselves. So I'm just taking that into consideration that we need to plan as if we're not going to have that this year, and then if it does happen sooner rather than later, then outstanding, I guess. But
Kind of a bonus.
I haven't even seen a plan. Is there a plan?
well, that was the other part of our conversation on Wednesday. We met with Public Health. There is a plan. The problem is every time, here's the example they gave. 1 week, they were told they were going to get 600 vaccines to use for Group 1A. They got 600 vaccines. They could proceed with their plan, no problem. The next week, they were told they were going to get 600 vaccines. They got 0. The next week, they were told they were going to get 600 vaccines. They did, but they were all earmarked for people to get the second round of vaccine, so they didn't have anybody else new to give them to either. So every time they have a plan, they wake up on Monday morning and they know what the box has or doesn't have in it, they have to completely readjust their plan also.
Is there a state plan? Because I haven't seen anything in the paper.
If you go online, I actually looked it up today on different states and what their plans were. They don't have one yet. A lot of states don't, and Iowa does not, no. So,
Not an official plan that's
No.
has been shared. So it's very frustrating. And I'm not blaming Linn County Public Health. They're as frustrated as we are as well. But it was just disappointing to hear that because I keep feeling like the vaccine was going to be of assistance to us for everybody going forward, and it will be. It's just very, very slow right now. So a couple things that we will be doing to help prepare in the next weeks and months, things that they suggested, and we will do this as well, is we will be surveying staff at some point to see how many of our staff are interested in the vaccine, and then just to help give us some information so we can provide Linn County the appropriate information as well. They've also suggested that we start to prioritize our own staff, because essentially, when the time comes, there's not going to be a morning we get an email and all of a sudden you have 1,200 doses for Linn-Mar. I think they'll be here tomorrow, so we can do everybody in a seamless process. It'll probably be, here's your 50 for this week or 100, and how do we prioritize that piece? So those are conversations we'll start to have, and we'll bring those to the board for communication as well, because it's most likely not going to be any sort of a mass vaccination process for staff or community anytime in the near future, because they don't have a vaccine to mass implement essentially. So definitely a frustration, a little bit of a hope killer temporarily anyway on that piece of it, but I think we just have to be realistic about what that means for us and how we move forward with that. And we'll stay in continual conversation with them. One thing I did hear I thought was interesting is that it seems like some of our more rural counties that have less people are probably getting to people faster. So then the question becomes, what happens after they go through the process? Linn County is saying statewide, everybody's supposed to get to 1A, and once you get 1A completed, you are not to go on to 1B until everybody else gets 1A completed. So that could be a hope for us though, because if other smaller counties around us they complete 1A, I don't know where their vaccines go that they should get. Does that come to us? Does that go other places? I don't know. And that's still very much a work in progress in there, still to be determined plan also.
It's too bad.
Like, there's at least in the paper, the Gazette, they've had, what's the priority for the legislature to get students back 100% in school. I mean, we can say, get a vaccine plan, get the vaccine out. You want to get people back in school statewide faster, start vaccinating people. I mean, get a plan and do. I understand the vaccines, I understand the supply, although nationally they say there's no problem, but I don't understand all that details. But that's one way to get kids back in school, which we all want.
That would be a great way to get everybody back if we had that in place. So.
Exactly.
Yep. So then the other piece, looking ahead to the third quarter for our return to learn plan, just a quick update. Here's kind of where we are right now. Overall, I think Clark, you mentioned a little bit ago, after the holidays, from hearing from Linn County Public Health, they do expect a bump in numbers starting last Friday, essentially, through January 18th, so a week from today. We have not seen that yet, so we'll see if that happens or if it doesn't happen, but that was kind of the prime window. They said if it was going to happen, they expected that, and both hospitals said the same thing in our conversation, so we'll see. Linn County numbers are in the 10% range right now. It varies from hour to hour. So as you look at our metrics, essentially our metrics right now, we are exactly where we had said we would be at this stage of 10%, where we're pre-K 6 in person and 7-12 in hybrid model. So just a reference for you there. Staffing wise, we are much better overall than we were during the hot time period in November, but things are starting to climb again today, especially. Last week wasn't too bad. Today we started to see more cases, so those dominoes start to increase quickly. So just something to keep an eye on for us as well. Our staff sub-fill rate was much better last week for teachers, not so much for classified staff, but for teachers it was better. Hopefully that trend will continue as well. I think we had some December grads and some other people get certification that have helped on that front too. So, so there's kind of the current update where we are. As we look to third quarter, we'll continue to monitor numbers. I don't want to make any decisions on third quarter yet. Tuesday, February 2nd is our first day of the third quarter. If we get too far ahead, it's just things change so fast. I don't want to make a decision that we regret. So we'll keep a close eye on things and monitor, and then we come back again as a board on the 25th, and we'll look at some decisions at that time as far as where we think we want to go, especially for the secondary level, which we have some options of whether we want to continue our current model of hybrid, or they want to look to bring people back. We can talk those options through more at that time too. Not going to be easy decisions. I would love to bring everybody back as soon as possible and to do it safely, but in reality, our COVID situation hasn't really changed since October. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know, but if you look at our numbers of positivity rate back in the fall to where they are now, they're basically the same. The vaccine isn't happening yet, so we just need to be really thoughtful and planful for where we think we need to go at that time too. So. There's my update. Any questions, thoughts, comments, especially on that model of learning as we look forward to?
I have two questions. Are we firm on making a decision for the entire third quarter? Or are we, I know like when we were trying to decide what we were going to do when we came back from break, we didn't even talk about 7-12 because we said we had committed through the end of second quarter.
Correct.
I just wonder, you know, when is the end of third quarter? The beginning of April, right?
Right around that time period. I can't remember
Right.
the exact date, but yes.
So I just think there's a lot can happen between February 1st and April 1st that maybe I just want to know, are we open to maybe we stay with hybrid, but if something changes as it gets warmer that we would shift? Is that an option?
Yeah, I think we could certainly look at
Okay.
that as I keep saying third quarter because that's what we've committed to at this point. It doesn't necessarily have to be the entire third quarter as we commit.
I'm just wondering what our options, because as it gets warmer and maybe, I don't know, the vaccine ferry comes to Iowa and says hi to Linn County, I don't know, fingers crossed there. My second question, in reference to what Tim brought up, you know, with the governor pushing the legislature to put into law that we have to offer face-to-face, if that happens, have we started talking about a plan for the high school? Because all of a sudden having 2,200 kids in the high school, when just as you just said, not much has changed since October, I'm really uncomfortable with our hand being forced that way.
Here's what we've thought about on that front. It's a lot of speculation until we see what happens legislatively. But one thing I do think we could consider, regardless of whether we have state level push or not, is do we look at offering families a choice to return, but not necessarily required, because we can still offer the family choice online option for families as well. My assumption is if we said, or if the governor said you now have to have full back in person again, what would happen is we'd have a lot of families then request to go to the family choice option. So in essence, what have we gained by doing that piece of it too? So that would be where our flexibility would come in to that, since we already have that offer in place. Yep.
I just don't want us to get blindsided by And we don't, I know it always varies with these laws when they go into effect, but I would guess that if this one's written, it's going to be like effective pretty much immediately. So I just want us to be prepared if that happens.
Good idea. Okay, so we've covered all those things. Now we're going to new business. New business, we have a discussion on potential facility needs, which Shannon, again, it's
Yeah.
your turn.
As we've talked informally, and this has been a topic at Linn-Mar for 100 years, I don't think I'm exaggerating too much, but facility needs are always a challenge for us. And this is a unique time period as we go through all the other challenges this year. But I think we would be, I don't say irresponsible, but I want to make sure we don't lose focus of the big picture amidst everything this year either, from a facility perspective. As you know, the last bond issue has really helped us tremendously, especially from a pre-K-8 perspective. We have tremendously helped our space issues this year, which really turned out to our benefit on many levels. So now the focus really becomes the high school, as well as some other projects throughout the district, but as a system, the high school becomes our primary focus and need. And as we talked in December, we want to start with the academic needs, our structures there first, and then start to figure out what our facility needs do to match that piece. The $1 million question that's always out there is, do we need a second high school? When does that happen? What does that look like? And I think we need to start having those conversations. Not do we, in my mind, isn't do we need a second high school, is more of a do we need a second high school in the next 10 years? Because that allows us to start revisiting our 10-year capital improvement plan and commit to the one thing or the other. I think it's a good time to get a facility advisory committee back together again. Some things have changed since last time we had that group in place, from funding revenue sources, from SAVE extension to bond issue passing. There's just quite a few things have changed. I think it's a good time to revisit that here in the near future. But I think before we get that group put in place, I want to make sure they have clear direction from us and from the board about what do we want them to do, what do we expect them to do, what is their responsibility as well. I think that the high school piece becomes the big portion of that. So a couple of data pieces I'll just share with you that you are well aware of. I'll just kind of revisit and help frame this conversation. And then I'll open up to your guys' thoughts as well. Last time we did the facility advisory and our capital improvement planning, it was October of 2019. We revisited the capital improvement plan at that time. And at that stage, we had committed to, the board had, as far as a student enrollment number of 2,800 at the high school. It was the kind of the target number, the button number for us to look at to really commit to a second high school to be considered. That was partially for space reasons, partially for course offerings, curriculum offerings, budget reasons, all of those type of situations kind of factored into that. And when I say 2,800 at the high school, I'm counting the high school and this facility that we're using high school-wise as well. So just wanted to revisit that number because I think that's a good thing for the board to go back to and either recommit to that or potentially revise that if we want to. And then just a couple of updates for you on where we're at. Right now, we're about 2,250 students at the high school, counting our Compass program as well. And then, so we're not to that 2,800 number yet. This is a hard year to project growth because everything's off, obviously. But looking at our grade levels that are approaching the high school in the near future, we only have one class that's really over 600 students, and that's second grade. It's been our biggest class since they arrived in kindergarten a couple years ago. They're at 637 right now. So to get to 2,800, obviously, your basic math, that's 700 kids per grade for 4 consecutive grade levels. So in our feeder system right now, we don't have those numbers approaching at this stage yet. So just want to give you that update, kind of that snapshot of where we are currently versus the numbers we had discussed a couple of years ago too. So I think tonight's be a good time just to have that conversation. I'd also like to have some conversations in the community-wise about this topic because it's an important one to have and be as open with people as we can about what we're looking at and why. So any thoughts you have, questions you have for me, more information you want for this conversation, and then we'll plan to come back to this again in upcoming board meetings for more discussion too. But I wanted to at least kick that off tonight as we continue talking about the high school programming, which then directly connects to facilities.
A quick just clarification question. When you said that the question isn't whether we need a second high school, but whether we need it in the next 10 years, I guess that's a little bit different than what we've been talking about saying, at least the years that I've been on the board. So I'm a little confused when you say that.
Well, and the only reason I say that is, I can't project 20, 30 years out that if we continue growing the way we do, whether a second high school will be there or not. I don't want you guys to have to commit to forever, but for our planning purposes, I think 10 years is a good window to look at for that. So that's all I was trying to phrase on that piece.
Okay, I guess I'm just,
So what is your understanding at this time?
Well,
That we did not?
I'm trying to figure out, like, whether you think we're gonna hit that 2,800 people in the next 10 years? Like, do you think that is going to happen? So then we're talking about, like, we're going to have a space issue. Now, what do we do about that space issue versus we may not have a space issue at all? So that's where I'm trying to figure out where we're starting from.
Yeah, let me clarify that.
Okay.
Based on our current numbers and projections right now, I do not see a space issue in high school.
Okay, that's what I wanted to.
Within the next 10-year window.
Within the next 10 years.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic.
And I would piggyback off in the last conversation, we were kind of talking about, do we need a whole second high school, or do we need an alternative facility that accents what we have, that provides more space and different learning environments?
You mean like a ninth grade building?
Well, a ninth grade building, a project-based learning building, a CTE, but I don't know what the other option is, but I thought that was part of the discovery conversation, is do we need a duplicate of what we have somewhere else in the district, or do we need something that helps the traditional building that we have?
I think part of it is we have to reach a threshold to be able to have 2 equal high schools, to be able to pay for 2 of the same experience for Linn-Mar students. And that's that 2,800 student threshold, to be able to split them into 2 high schools. So in my perspective, that 10-year plan leaves us with the option of, let's just keep trying to pull kids out of that building. That's my perspective, but.
And that brings up the biggest question is, can we even afford a full second high school? And if we don't need to, and I don't think we can. We might be able to build it. I don't think we can afford to staff it without drastically reducing opportunities for both buildings.
I guess I'm not from hearing that now from you, I'm not even sure we need to be having that discussion, because if we're not in imminent danger of reaching that capacity threshold, anything that we could talk about, any conversation that we could have surrounding this today will probably be irrelevant 10 years from now, when we actually are reaching that threshold and need to have that conversation. So, every time we talk about it, I think it does kind of leave the air of it's something that we're going to be doing. Within 10 years, and now if we're not going to be having that conversation at all, or we don't have those needs at all now, I guess for me, I'm not even comfortable continuing to have the discussion, because there's been so much, there has been so much consternation about this second high school. I have a friend who I love and who will probably know who I'm talking about when she hears this story, which is that she's very upset that we don't have a second high school, because when her current junior, I think he's a junior now, was in, beginning his elementary career, they were promised this second high school, and she's really angry about this still. So it's do we continue to pour kind of gasoline on a fire a little bit by continuously bringing this up, if now the projections say we don't even need, this isn't even a conversation? Because what we decide, we could sit here and have this conversation and say in year 11 we're going to build a second high school, or in year 11 we're going to build a ninth grade center, but we don't know that, because things will have changed very much.
I think there's some capacity issues at the high school, but not to the point that warrants even, like you're saying, even talking about a second.
Right, so at this point, I'm
but I think we do need to talk about things like a ninth grade center, or some other way to pull students out of that building. I think that's the conversation we're looking to have, and just to kind of put to bed, for 10 years at least, the second high school.
See, that's why I'm trying to get clarification on this, because from what Shannon's saying, it's like, we already have enough kids pulled out of the high school based on things we're doing today in order for this not to be an issue for 10 years.
To not have enough to have a second high school, but that doesn't mean that there isn't capacity issues at the building as is. Does that make sense?
No, well, I think I hear what you're saying, but I don't know that I just necessarily agree, just because if we're having a conversation about how to pull kids out of, are we going to build a 9th grade center of any kind if we know that in 12 years we're going to build a second high school?
Well, then maybe if you build a 9th grade center, you don't need to build a second high school for 30, 50 years.
That's fair, but again, is that the conversation to have now? Is now the time to have that conversation if we're not even, we're not even close to this, and now he's saying, like, I thought we were having the conversation before, because when our demographics people have come in, they keep telling us, you're gonna be here soon, you're gonna be here soon, you're gonna be here soon, and now it's like, well, actually, no, you're not. You know what I mean?
I think part of this
Well,
conversation that we also need to have, we can, and I've said this at past meetings, but it's really easy in our district to say we need another elementary, we need another middle school, we need another intermediate, because that doesn't impact high school sports and competitions and, you know, all the extra things outside of the classroom that make up a high school identity. So one thing we have to talk about as a district is, are we ready to split that in two and to have a Kennedy and a Wash and a Jeff? Not a unified district, because that is, if we build a second high school, that's what happens to the district. Half of them all go here and half of them all go here, and then they compete against each other. That is part of this conversation. Are we there as a district that we're ready to have that conversation?
How are we having that conversation before we even have a need for more space? I guess is my, if you're saying we don't need the space, why are we even having a conversation about what we might do with a potential space in the hypothetical future? I guess I'm not.
Because it leads to the conversation of, do we make what we have work until we need a second building, or do we not want to get to that point, and so we build the 9th grade center, or we build the CTE center, or we build the project-based learning center? I mean, that's which direction do we want to still be Linn-Mar High School, and we build the second facility that helps us enable that to stay there, where we don't grow to the point of needing a second high school? Or do we say, eventually, we're going to split?
How do you build something if you don't have the need for it, though? You're saying, like, we're going to have a discussion about building a potential CTE center or whatever, but how do we even have that conversation when there's no, when there's no need, a space need?
We have to be able to dream, and that's kind of what we're doing. And I think we had this discussion, we've had it for 10, 12 years, but at that time we were growing by 500 to 600 kids per year. Well, when you started on that path, but I do think the discussion we had with Mark tonight and Dr. Gustafson, all of that feeds into this too, because we've said this, I was on one of these committees, I think it was 11 or 12 years ago, and the discussion was, is the high school going to look like it's looking today? And that's really what you're all saying. Everybody's saying that. But we still have to be careful, because when you drive around the community, there are homes going up constantly. And something like that could cause a little bit of a bubble on us too, and we have to be ready for it. Or the other way around, if the economy turns and we're losing a lot of good professional careers or jobs in our community, that can affect it too. So I really think deep down inside, and Shannon, I think, put it exactly right, we have to have a vision, we have to understand, but with the trends and the tendencies today, we're not at a point that we're going to overload our system that fast. Because if all of a sudden we have 700 or 800 kids in a class down in the first, second, third grade, then all of a sudden we've got to prepare for it. But I think you're exactly right that we don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know how we're going to split it off. We've had this 9th grade center discussion. We've had a tech center discussion. We've had all of those discussions, but can we afford it? Can we really handle the split if we have under 2,800 kids? Probably not. But all of a sudden we're at 3,000 kids. Then all of a sudden, then it's a forced situation. We have to be ready to move. So there's just a lot of issues involved, and every comment that's made is well taken, because we don't know what it's going to be, but we have to be prepared for it, And that's what this 10-year plan is trying to do, to make sure we're able to adjust and move through it, so. So I,
If we take it and we look at it and we revise it and say, we thought this is what we were gonna need, we thought this was the right projection, and say, you know, that has changed in this amount of time, where do we think we'll be in 10 years? And also look at what are the needs we have right now? Are there areas within the high school or within the junior high or across our whole district where we need more space for something? I'm thinking of things, I'm just throwing out ideas here, it's not saying this is cast in stone, but room for concerts and rooms for those kinds of things. You know, is there some way we can, you know, look at facilities that can accommodate that? If we expand more here in this building and this all becomes high school, then where do we put the people that are here, like Shannon and the cabinet and all those? So I mean, we need to be somewhat of a visionary. Can we produce a facility that actually answers to quite a few of those things all in one? Maybe on some of the new land that we bought. I don't know. I'm totally throwing this out. But what I'm saying is, yes, we have to do some projections, but we also have to be realistic about what we can afford and what works and all of those kinds of things.
I think then if, like what you're talking about in terms of like performance spaces and all of that, those are needs that we have today.
And
let those things then be the driver of a question, of the question of a second high school or a ninth grade center, and not whereas I think that it's kind of happened a little bit, which is that this idea of a second high school drives some of those other questions. Because it's like, well, are we going to build another performance center if we're going to have a second high school? You know, are we going to?
Because you're going to build a different performance center depending on whether we are talking about, yes, this is what we want to do. This is obviously not what we want to do, but yeah, we want to start working towards building a second high school. And like Britt was saying, then we're not going to invest in
Maybe,
a concert
but
hall
don't you think that depends on how soon you're, I agree with that, but really that, I think that depends on how far out we're talking about a second high school potentially coming. If we're talking about a second high school potentially not coming for another 15 years, then it drives less of that conversation on what we're going to do about our needs today than if we're talking about a second high school that's coming in 7 years. And that's what we were talking about just last year.
I think a lot of the reason it comes up at the board table is because it comes up in the community. And it's easy for us to sit here and say, like, we have to explain it. We have to tell the community repeatedly that we have to get that 2,800 number. And this is why we don't think we're going to hit that 2,800 number. Because if we just didn't talk about it, then the community would feel like, why aren't you talking about this? My kid walks through crowded hallways. My kid doesn't get a spot in the parking lot. My kid doesn't play on a team. We need a second high school.
I understand. I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying a little bit.
I think the real piece, a couple things that were brought up here, can we afford it? There's two costs to that, and you've referenced them. One is the actual build of a second high school, which is not cheap, and then the second one is to actually run it year after year, and both of those come at a significant cost as well. Could we do that? We could, but there's going to be other things that have to be sacrificed, and that's not ideal unless we really feel like that is where we need to go. I think the conversation really, for us, can go multiple ways however we want it to take it. Do we want to really open this up and have a full-on conversation? Do we just want to reconfirm our numbers, our commitment from past time? And because the things you just talked about, Rachel, with that piece, someone else mentioned the auditorium type of things. Whether we build another high school or a ninth grade building or whatever it is, we still have some facility needs at the high school as well, as a district as well, that we need to look at. So that would be a key piece for us to start to dig into, and that's where I see that facility advisory group really working into the details, the specifics, and get people on board to do some of that work, and then bring that back to the board for recommendation and consideration at that point too. So, so whether we really spend time to open up and have that full public discussion on that, or if the board is comfortable at this time, not necessarily tonight, but in the near future, saying we stick with our numbers we had earlier and projections and update that piece of it, and then recommit, then we can start to plan going forward as well for that piece. So, but I think still good conversation to have, even though it's good to revisit it. Numbers change, projections change. Like Barry talked, our growth has leveled off a little bit. This year especially is not, is it going to be an anomaly? Is it not? We'll have to see on those pieces of it too. But it's something we have to continue to talk about, at least to revisit, to help us put that 10-year plan together, because we need to then commit to, okay, what are we going to do? We're talking about significant projects potentially, significant dollars. We want to make sure we get that right and being responsible to our taxpayers too. So I think there's a lot of things being said that are on similar thoughts. It's matter of how we pull it together for next steps.
Tim, what did you have to
Oh,
say?
we talk about 2,800. I guess one question I have is how many kids do we have? That's 2,800 total students. I know we don't have 2,800 kids at the high school at one time. How many kids do we have in Kirkwood programs? Are we looking to grow those type programs? What venture, where do we think we'll be in 5 to 6 years? Other type programs, where would we, where would we be? Because I know we're not going to have 2,800 kids, in 11 years all in the high school at one time, right? I mean, because of things. So what other type programs do we have is one question I would have.
Yep, I can pull some numbers on that together to provide.
Okay, I mean, yeah, and so that would help me as we kind of go through this, and it sounds, your first question was, is 2,800 the number still? And it sounds like no one's objecting to 2,800 as yet, so I guess that's the answer is still that number is, we're comfortable with that, but.
And we have to be comfortable with that just as long as the staff and the leadership in that building tells us how it feels and what it looks like, because they're the ones that know that.
Yeah.
And this venture program will probably add to it. Sorry to interrupt you. But
No. And the other question I had is, if I hear about a second high school, it's more athletics and extracurriculars. So, what are we doing to, and maybe, I'm sure we are, but maybe I just don't know, how are we addressing that with, if kids wants to play basketball and he's the number 14 kid, he's not going to get in the game, but is there intramurals or something? I know there are things that go on, just it may be good to kind of at least talk that through at the board table too.
Football games are very long. They got like extra quarters on there, extra periods on the basketball games.
You're talking middle school?
No, freshman basketball, then I've sat through multiple 5-period basketball games. So
Okay.
so
Okay. So those are the type of things that
I just had like some examples from
Yeah.
you might appreciate.
No, because I only know. I'm more familiar with my daughter's experience, and she had a different type path, and I know we talk about the high school, but we don't go into some of those type details all the time. So.
Those are definitely information things I can bring back to look at and consider as well.
Is there anything else the board people here sitting that would like more information for our discussion? Anything else you can think of? And if you can't think of anything right now, you can let Shannon know so that we can come back and have more discussion and where we might want to go, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yep. We'll continue this discussion in the future.
Okay. All right, now, wow, we are to 6:02.
I make a motion to approve the 2021-2022 at-risk dropout prevention modified supplemental application in the amount of $1,338,750, and for this amount to be submitted to the School Budget Review Committee for consideration of increased spending authority.
Yes, there's second, Rachel? Is it? Okay, any discussion? Any question? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed?
Move to approve the revised 21-22 school calendar as presented.
Second. Okay, any questions?
So the change was you added 2 days for new teachers up front? Is that what I saw, or did I?
The changes are completely related to the impact of COVID and delaying our school year and having most of my professional development days at the front of the year this year.
Okay.
So we don't really have any throughout the school year as well. But since we had prepared the 21-22 calendar before all of that happened, the need now for professional development days has changed. So there's been some adjustments to that, start of the school year and throughout the year, professional development time. There are no student days impacted by the changes.
Okay.
Just some change of dates to the new teacher orientation being closer to the start of the year, and a couple of other adjustments before school at the end of the year as well for staff. So,
Okay.
yep.
Anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Open enrollment.
Make a motion to approve the open enrollment request as presented.
Barry, okay. Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries.
To approve the consent agenda as presented.
Any questions, comments, discussion? Okay. The only thing I'd like to say is we have a new, we need to, I just wanted to say a welcome to Chris Gates, our new operations manager.
He starts next Monday. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
So
he starts
we want
next-
to welcome
okay.
him to
All right.
Linn-Mar. And any other questions, discussions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes. Okay, we're to board calendar this week on Thursday, 11:30. We're at Westfield for a board visit. If you could let us know if you're able to attend, you can let Gayla know, that would be awesome. And then I see the superintendent, the Lion Learning is coming up at noon and 5:30 on the 19th. Are those virtual like it says?
Yes,
here?
we'll do virtual again
Okay.
as well, same as we did this fall.
Okay, is there anyone who'd like to commit to a certain time?
I'll do the noon one.
Pardon me?
I'll do noon.
Okay,
How many you want on there?
We had 2 last time, that seemed to
I'll
go
do,
well.
I'll do noon as well.
okay, so, and then I would be glad to do the 5:30.
I can do 5:30 also.
Okay, so Kara and I will do that. All right, that's fine.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Not like you really need us, but we'll be there.
No, it's good to have.
Okay, is there anything else here? We've got some Marion City Council. Would someone like to say yes for doing the 21st? And then we've got the 4th and on to February 18th.
I'll do the 4th.
The
I can do
4th?
the 21st.
Okay, so we've got Tim on the 21st. Kara, you said the 4th.
Sandra, I have to back up.
Pardon me?
I cannot do the 19th virtual.
Oh, okay. You-
So if anybody
because
else wants to
that
do
time won't
it.
work,
I can't
or
do it
just-
at all.
at
I'm
all,
out that whole
okay.
day.
Okay, so Britt's
Sorry.
going to do that. Does anyone else want to join at noon for the virtual?
Can do it.
Okay, that'd be great, Rachel. So that's on the 19th at the noon time.
We'll get you links for that.
That'll be perfect.
We'll get you guys links for that one
Okay.
access. so.
Okay, all right. And then February 18th, City Council, anyone? I could take care of that, that's fine. All right, anything else here?
There is a, for me personally, there's a February 4th conference board meeting at noon. I'll be handling that. That's all going to be virtual though, too.
Oh,
That conference
the
meeting.
link.
3-minute
Okay, gotcha.
long virtual meeting. At least you don't have to drive downtown
I
for
was
3
going to
minutes.
say
3 minutes.
5 minutes or whatever. That's awesome, okay.
I'd like to make one other comment too, if you
Okay.
don't mind. Nathan did a wonderful job on the news the other night. I was impressed.
And just so you know, he had about 5 minutes of notice on, hey, we need you for this, so.
5 minutes is easy.
I don't think you had the speed to get there.
What was it on?
We got a pallet of hand sanitizer from Cedar Ridge, right?
Donation from Cedar Ridge, and it was a lot more than we anticipated, and the media ended up covering it, so.
I was in
Oh,
Minnesota,
my.
so I
Nathan
didn't see
was
it.
the spokesperson there, so.
I think Carla was supposed to go before.
He was the last one.
There might have been about 5 people before. It was a team effort.
Okay, well, anything else? Okay, so I entertain a motion for adjournment. Okay, Kara?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank
Good
you
meeting,
all.
guys.